Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our college readout. We have the pleasure of having with us Executive Vice President Teresa Ribera. Executive Vice President, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and thanks a lot to all the colleagues from the media attending this readout, already in an advanced time in the afternoon. As you know, today we have discussed a proposal for a new framework for stated measures to support the clean industrial deal, and I will go into the details in a couple of minutes. The College also adopted the European Space Act on the safety, resilience and sustainability of space activities in the Union. And Commissioner Kubilius will come to the press room just after this press conference to present what we have discussed, what we have agreed. With that said, I would add that the most important thing that I will be introducing right now is the main topic of this press conference on the clean industrial support aid framework, knowing that the Security College, as you know, it is a classified meeting, and that allows us to have an important discussion, but I will not comment on it. I would like to introduce this clean industrial state aid framework to underline the fact that it's a kind of welcome package. Choose Europe. It delivers on the commitments we made when adopting the Clean Industrial Deal back in February. It helps, it supports the idea that we want to become a fully decarbonized economy by 2050, and we have an ongoing discussion on how we can ensure the best way to count on the emissions reductions targets in the amended climate law for 2040. It invites, as I said, to choose Europe when deciding where to invest, and it responds to the willingness of the different member states and also the European institutions to come along with the European industry in its transition to a decarbonized and competitive industrial powerhouse. Today we provide the framework for member states to invest in our decarbonization. We want to modernize our economy and to make it sure that it is competitive, it is boosting social prosperity. As you know, Europe has always got a great industrial preference, and we know that this means updating the capacity to produce clean technology, to develop affordable, clean and more reliable energy sources, and to ensure a more competitive and decarbonized industry. But it is important to underline the fact that with this framework we intend to fast-track investments while ensuring faster and smooth decarbonization of our economy, while taking into consideration that in order to use public resources, we need to ensure that they are being used in an efficient manner and that they go along the lines of our great European project. So, to ensure that we do not break the single market functioning, we underscore the Think in Europe approach. We are able to ensure that there is not negative impact in territorial terms. The role of the state may be the role of a regulator, but it is also the role of an investor, making things easier. And if we want to become competitive and decarbonized, if we want to count on a just society, on a fair way to produce wealth, it is important to power clean and flexible energy. It is important to ensure that we can remain innovative and retain talent. It is important to come along with the traditional sector so to facilitate this decarbonization. We want to lead this process and to ensure that we can count on private investment betting on Europe. At the same time that we ensure that the single market becomes and remains a source of cohesion, social progress, prosperity and fair competition. Allow me to enter into this way to transform the vision into reality, how we can make use of the state aid tools benefiting from the experience of these recent years where we had to come along with our societies to respond to previous challenges. This framework establishes clear rules that give predictability to invest. It is a framework that will be in place for 5 years. It provides safeguards to guarantee the level playing field and territorial solidarity. It is shaped in such a way that counting on conditionalities, facilitating the fast-track development, we think European. It is the moment where we assess it is important to move fast. We have a great opportunity to ensure that Europe is attracting investments and retaining talent. We have consulted widely on this framework. We listened to the Member States, to the different stakeholders, to countless voices. We studied 500 proposals since February, and the result reflects the spirit behind those requests. It builds on the extensive experience, as I said, and it covers different aspects that are important for the different players in this European context. First, to increase the share of clean energy in our energy mix. For that purpose, the framework helps to cost-effectively fast-track the rollout of clean energy. Second, because clean energy means autonomy and competitiveness, we want to ensure that the different tools that we put in place make full sense with our current regulation. We want to ensure that we can reduce our reliance on fossil fuel imports to protect us from price volatility and geopolitical risk, to provide more stable and affordable energy prices, and to bet on the industrial services that help into building these equipments, these infrastructures and solutions. Now, the Member States can set up ready-to-use schemes for the deployment of renewable energy using faster and easier processes. We have paid particular attention to 2 types of key players in this transition. First, we provide tools to support the clean transition in hard-to-decarbonise sectors through low-carbon fuels such as hydrogen, crucial to cut emissions in the short and medium term in sectors where cleaner or cheaper options aren't yet available. We develop a temporary price relief for energy-intensive users who continue to face higher costs compared to competitors in places, in geographies with less ambitious climate policies, with a strong conditionality so that they invest in a change to accelerate the transition. More renewables, more electrification, more batteries, more flexibility, bringing the benefits of the future already today through this price relief mechanism. We propose a 4 times 50 scenario. This approach covers up to half of the average household electricity price for up to half of the annual demand, thus reducing by up to 25% overall electricity cost of energy-intensive users, subject to the obligation to reinvest half of what they get into decarbonisation. Why these levels? Because we consider that these are the justified thresholds. By prices in relevant third countries and by past prices in the European Union, we have the possibility to understand, as well as to ensure that the potentially future electricity generation cost anticipating the benefits of decarbonisation may help into today's industrial production. So Member States will be able to grant energy-intensive users a 3 years electricity cost relief in return for a proportionate amount of investments on decarbonisation, flexibility or efficiency. Second, to decarbonise our industrial base, the framework offers flexible support for all decarbonisation and energy-efficient technologies. This means major emission cuts, less dependence on fossil fuel imports, and a real transformation of how our industries operate. The framework introduces a green stamp approach. This is a system of pre-approved aid levels tailored to the needs of each technology. It also includes safeguards, like requiring a certain level of energy efficiency in a change. These green stamp systems allows member states to move fast and provide targeted support without going through a full notification process to authorise support for every single project. Third, to build a resilient clean tech ecosystem. We want to do it through backing key enabling industries, giving our innovators the space and incentive to thrive. All the crucial technologies and components covered by the Net Zero Industry Act are included in the scope of the framework, ensuring coherence between the different European rules related to the European clean tech industry. Again, to safeguard competition and ensure that every region and every business has equal opportunities, Member States will be able to offer more support for clean tech projects in less advantaged regions. The greater the need, the greater the support may be. We also know that certain clean tech sectors are in difficulties. That is why Member States will, for example, be able to support them with funding for new production lines, new machinery, or to license technology, just to give you a few examples. Rather than relying solely on grants or subsidies, equity investments represent a more effective and economically sustainable approach to state aid. This model not only enables strategic directionality, but also ensures societal return on public risk. Allow me to quote my good friend Mariana Mazzucato: when the state takes risk, it should also share in the rewards. Governments have historically played a key role in taking earlier stage, high-risk investments that pave the way for breakthrough innovations. The public sector is not just a market fixer, but a market server. And that's a strong message broadly supported by Member States. They want to be next to their industries. This is not merely a theoretical proposition. It has proven successfully in practice. Finally, to the risk and mobilise private investment, the framework brings critical tools to the table. For example, Member States can set up schemes to incentivise private investors to invest in green projects covered by the framework. We want, as I said, to be the best place to invest. But our job is not yet done. We continue our work on different work streams to further simplify, speed up and promote the right investments. For instance, we are currently working on the revision of the General Block Exemption Regulation. We will keep on working in the development of the different tools being presented in the Clean Industrial Deal. We announced the Future Competitiveness Coordination Tool. Once this tool is up and running, I could encourage Member States to also use it to better coordinate public funding is spent on a clean and a competitive future Europe. If we all work together, we can manage. And as I said, our main goal today is to ensure that Choose Europe becomes a reality. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Executive Vice President. And with this, we can open the floor to your questions on this file on the Clean Industrial Deal State Aid Framework. I start here with Jarno.
Thank you, Paula. Jarno Hartikainen, Helsingin Sanomat. Commissioner, when the Commission introduced the DCTF framework a couple of years ago, the main argument for that was the introduction of Inflation Reduction Act on the other side of the Atlantic and the need to match the subsidies. Now, the Trump administration is significantly scaling down the finance to IRA programs, but the European Commission keeps pressing on and even accelerating the state aid race within the EU. So what's the rationale behind this decision to go the opposite way as the US is going? And secondly, you said that there's a need to give clarity to the investors, and now there's the clarity until 2030. Is there any prospect of going back to the old traditional state aid rules? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. I think that we all understand that in order to become competitive, we are transforming the way we produce, the way we consume. And it is also quite clear that we count on a very powerful industrial ecosystem in Europe that is doing their best so to ensure that they can be competitive, long-lasting, profitable through the decarbonisation means. So the main question is to what extent, in the geopolitical context that is given today, we can come along with these companies to transform the system in a high-speed mood, let's say it this way. To what extent we need to accelerate the energy transition, so to lower the dependency from abroad and to provide affordable and stable prices. And I would say that very much because of the United States giving up on this modernization of the industry, there may be many investors willing to identify who understands today's challenges, but tomorrow's challenges, so to count on stable, reliable and predictable framework to decide where to invest. So I think there is a great opportunity for Europe to ensure that this willingness to invest, this money that is trying to bet on what it is promising for the time being and for the time to be, may come to Europe. What we wanted to achieve is to be sure that we could count on a common model for every single member state, that the message being sent to the industrials, to the investors, to the energy players is being implemented in a similar manner and is being implemented in a fast way. This was why we thought that it was a great opportunity to take away the lessons from the previous temporary matters that were intended to support the economy when the economy was not working at all, or when there was such a big spike in energy prices that we could not survive, not in industrial terms or in household, families, day-to-day life, to identify how we can learn from the experience the best way forward. This was the intention of this framework. And this is why it took an intense, long time to be sure that we were trying to address all the different elements and all the different concerns, but also recommendations, lessons being learned from the experience from the different stakeholders. Look at, you were mentioning the IRA. Only in batteries, almost 7 billion euros have left the United States in terms of investment in batteries in Q1. Do you want to invest in batteries? We are more than happy to host that investment and to ensure that we can count on a much more secure manner to ensure that our industrial capacities, our mobility, our energy systems are prepared, are resilient for the future.
Thank you. Yes, Christian, please.
Thanks, Paula. Christian Anderer with ENS Europe. You mentioned at the start of the press conference that there were important discussions in the college that you do know what to comment on. But this is also a college readout, so I'm going to ask the question. I don't know if this was the topic. But did the Green Claims Directive come up in the college? And related to that, as Vice President in charge of the Green Deal, were you aware of the intention to withdraw the directive that was announced last Friday, and did you support that?
We'll come back to your question at the very end, but now we'll focus really, for a question of organisation, on the topic, which is the state aid framework, and we'll get back to that at the end. Yes, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Lewis Crofts, MLX. The state aid framework today is about helping investments in producing clean technology and helping the transition. But governments and companies want help covering their operational costs, the day-to-day costs of running their businesses. Are you making something that the Commission has traditionally been opposed to? Are you making any concessions to them in allowing operating aid? That's the first question. And the second one is, this sets a framework for governments to channel money towards the clean transition. But there's not a lot of money around at the moment. National budgets are under a lot of pressure. There's lots of demands on them, most notably defence. Are you confident that the governments are actually going to take up the opportunities that you put on offer here, or are you worried that actually there's no money for it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the two questions, which are important questions in this topic. First, as you have your own underscore, yes, I think that support to operational expenditure in an industrial facility is always more risky in terms of eventual distortions, in terms of legal certainty and support at the court, in terms of design, in terms of preventing overcompensations. So no, there is no any type of OPEX support being included in this upfront guidance. There may be individual cases that could be raised for the consultation to the DG Competition Services, and then there will be an in-depth assessment on whether it makes sense, it does not make sense, or through the regular way. But we want it to be a speedy in a type of response, so to provide certainty and to make the day-to-day work of the national governments easier, and the predictability for investors easier, and the reading through the European geography, a common reading on how we play. And I think that these are the goals, and I think that these goals are achieved and will make our lives easier. We also respond to something which is very important, which is that there is this strong demand coming from the industrial community, but this strong willingness coming from the different institutional layers to come along, to partner in the modernization of the economy, to ensure that whenever we have a great challenge, so to decarbonize the economy, to facilitate a much more sound and clean energy system, to invest in the creation of new opportunities, we can do things together. We can join efforts. This is where we also thought that it was important to count on this common vision that could be applied all along the European geography, including, as I said, how we can provide tools to the risk, the investment, so to lower the cost of capital, so to become much more attractive, so to identify how we can match public and private funding, so blending finance that could count on the risking tools. At the very same time, you are asking whether there is money, where there is public money. It is not an obligation, of course. It is not an obligation for member states to make use of these facilities. But I think that it was important that those that are willing to use them count on this framework that explains, shows, introduces the conditionalities, the elements to come along with this. And it was very important to introduce also thresholds to avoid breaking the level playing field within the single market, or to prevent eventual distortions depending on the territorial capacities and the member states' capacities, including this eventual combination, so raising the intensity of the aid that could be used for those regions that benefit from the cohesion funds. I think that in general terms there is a willingness coming from member states to come along with industries. So, yes, creating wealth is part of our security concerns. Through the creation of wealth, we will count on opportunities to match something which is very much in the frontal space of our treaties: high quality of life for Europeans, capacity to keep on creating wealth. But this means a modern economy, this means an energy system that delivers. So let's see. It is a 5 years framework. Let's see how it works. our impression is that there are opportunities for all member states, and that most probably if not all, member states will somehow not only benefit but make use of the tools being introduced in this framework.
And we can continue with your questions here in the front, please.
Hi, Aude van der Noo from Politico. The new state aid framework seems to address and to answer questions coming, for example, from France, from Germany. How is the Commission going to ensure that the level playing field is maintained, that there is no subsidy raise, like in Germany with the energy prices, in France for nuclear, because it seems like the new version is just tailored to answer that?
Well, I could politely disagree with your statement. I think that it is taking into consideration the different views of all member states. I think that there are limits and guarantees to ensure that this European vision and that these safeguards to avoid those that have deeper pockets to enter into this conversation with much more capacity to provide support, and then leaving aside the rest of the European member states. I think that taking into consideration the intensity that is being authorized, the thresholds that could not be overpassed by the state aid being allocated to each project, the possibility to scale in a different manner the different tools helps everybody to make use of this tool. I think that this is quite an important aspect being taken into consideration, because yes, we do not want to break decades building territorial cohesion in Europe or building the single market. We need to deepen the single market, not to corner some in the single market. So I think that this is what it was intended to do. Dealing with the extension to other NCR's Net Zero Industry Act references avenues, I think that there are different chapters within the framework, and not everything is covered. Of course, if there may be individual sites to create a new nuclear capacity, a new nuclear facility, there is not a competition issue. And there may be a need to address a proper assessment on what is the eventual compensation support in terms of state aid that could not undermine the level playing field when figuring out the prices and the competition context vis-à-vis the rest of the eventual generators of electricity. So that is not included in an upfront guidance that cannot cover there where we do not have experience, we do not have reference, and that could be undermining this level playing field being intended through the electricity market and the construction of an energy union in Europe.
Thank you. Yes, Nikolaos, please.
Thank you. Nicholas Kohlmeier for your Executive Vice President. The temporary crisis framework was supposed to be temporary. It has now been de facto extended. The OPEX state aid guidelines are supposed to last until 2030. Are you at all worried that these constant temporary guidelines are becoming more and more enshrined in the EU's state aid guideline framework, and that this will continue well into the 2030s and become a permanent fixture of the EU?
Asking the same question that Jarno asked, but Executive Vice President, if you want to add anything to your comprehensive answer earlier on.
Yes, of course, I'm not bored at all. On the contrary, it is part of my mission letter to ensure a just, competitive and clean transition for the European economy. And it is not an extension of a temporary crisis that was shaped, was designed to ensure that people were not going to die because of the lack of capacity to pay their energy bills, or that the economy was going to collapse down because of the lack of possibility to cover the energy prices in a very spiky moment, or because there was a confinement for all the population during the COVID times. No. This is a framework that intends to achieve what it was written down in the Clean Industrial Deal, the quick modernization of our industrial premises, the betting on the clean manufacturing that we are still missing, the possibility to speed up the transformation of our energy systems, because we know very well that it may happen through the market rules, but it may be a little bit late. So it is an honor to say that we come along with this transformation and that we do it in such a way that it is fair, it is stable, it is predictable, and it does not distort the European economy.
And we continue here in the front.
Hi, hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the question. Kieran Sunderland from Context. Executive Vice President, why did you pick 2040 as the phase-out date for gas projects receiving public financing support? And then, would you view this framework as the carrot or incentive for the Member States to approve the 2040 climate target?
Well, I think that it certainly helps into the whole decarbonization project that we have decided to entail together. And we know that the climate reference is a market driver in terms of how we decide where to invest, how we facilitate this long-lasting profitability of our business community. We know that this is challenging and there are things that perform better than others. There are things where we need to learn and identify how we can correct what it did not work, and other things that may be happening faster than what we expected. There was this demand coming from those industries that are not electricity-intense consumers, but that require natural gas to produce, to be producing their output, so part of the industrial process, that we're also figuring out how they could decarbonize their system, but the times show that, in fact, we need to imagine, to figure out how we can get this, allow me to use this climate-related horrible word, transitioning away from that, and how we could play with this transformation in the industrial chain to get rid of gas and to enter into other type of molecules, because apparently electrification is not a solution. At the very same time, we introduce additional safeguards, because we think that when thinking about natural gas, it should be the very last resort. When there is no other technologically mature alternative, and it may be under the condition of providing detailed information how natural gas will be phased out by 2040 at the latest. So we accept some flexibility compared to what it has conceived as the best way to bet on into the future of the energy system and the future of the industry, because we understand that we need to go through this valley of death to facilitate the industries to get into this transformation. But at the very same time, we need to be quite demanding on the conditions, how we can deliver a strong emissions saving or energy savings in this context, how it is subject to this timeframe conditionality, how it has to be justified that it is the only way forward, at least for a while.
And we can have, if we don't have any further questions, Lorenzo, on the topic. So final question on the topic, and then we can have one final question. We go back to Christian. Lorenzo, please.
As Sky News Italy, I would like to ask you a more philosophical question on this issue. We know that on defense we had a very strong push. We have the SAFE program, which are actually loans to member states with money that comes from the markets, and the Commission is collecting that, sort of Eurobonds, if we want, even if the states have to repay it. We have a strong push in the sense of flexibility of the Stability Pact, because we know that member states can have a 1.5% deficit in spending for defense for 4 years. This was for defense, but then for the environment, for the clean industrial deal, for the Green Deal, that was the previous big project of the Commission, we only have the possibility to go to ask member states to finance the industry and the clean industry with state aids. And the state aids are, as we know, something that some member states can afford much better than others. Some member states have the possibility, the margin in the budget to do that. Some others don't have that. So there is a divergence that we create with this in the market. And we know also that there is this competition with the money that member states have to spend for the defense. So don't you think that it's a bad choice, in particular for somebody like you who should be really the guardian of the Green Deal in this Commission? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that you are referring to two different aspects of what we should be thinking of, plus an additional comment that I will make. Because we are speaking about budget, funding, available money, and we are speaking about the conditions on how the money of others, in this case the member states, can facilitate this transformation. In the first discussion, the comment may be quite legitimate. What about the next multi-annual financial framework? What about the existing funds? How we can allocate the existing funds? So to bet on something that we say it is the existential challenge of our times. And I think that this is part of what we intend to respond when thinking about the innovation or the competitiveness fund, or when we intend to discuss how we can invest in this climate resilience or modernization package for our industry, because we want to create wealth and because we want to protect our societies and our economy, because the adaptation policies do also impact in a much more resilient economy. And there I think that it is absolutely legitimate to have this discussion. It is not the discussion of today, because today we are focusing this college measure in this second part. What are the conditions to bet into the modernization of the economy? And I have to say that, very honestly, yes, independently of what is the amount of the GDP or the budget that we dedicate to green policies, which is important, we need to think in an European context how we can accelerate what we are demanding. As I said, we cannot say to the citizens or to the industrial players, to the economic community, this is the most important challenge we have to face. We want to become fully decarbonized because it is a question of economic survival, because if it is a question of competitiveness, but you have to do it on your own. No, we want to accelerate it. Of course, they will be doing it, but we don't know at what cost, we don't know in which moment. And we know that the European economy is an open economy that works in the global economy. And we don't want to miss trends in terms of innovation. We don't want to miss trends in terms of investment. We want to be sure that we produce in a smart manner, that we count on a smart energy system. And this is where we thought that it was very important to provide a common framework for everybody, so that those, and I have already said that my impression is that could be most, if not all, member states that are willing to come along, to invest, to take the risk, to bet on their own industry and their own energy system transformations, could count on the same type of framework and conditions to avoid distortions that could damage the territorial cohesion or the single market. And then we come to this.
Yes, so we have now indeed time for one final off-the-topic question. Christian, you had raised it already. You want to just remind us what the question was?
Sure, thanks. So it wasn't the Green Claims Directive. I was wondering if it came up at the college meeting today, and if so, can you give any details on the discussion as part of this readout? And related to that, as Vice President in charge of the Green Deal, were you aware of this announcement to withdraw the directive before it was announced last Friday, and did it give you support?
Did you want another question on the main topic, or I go to Christian?
This will be the final one, and Christian, the announcement of the intention to withdraw. I think it's important to underline that. Yes, Executive Vice President.
So I think that I do not break my obligation to. I think I don't break my obligation to respect the confidentiality of the college if I say that we did not.
No.
So we did not speak about this topic in the college today. I think that the most important thing is to state and underline that the negotiation position of the college was already adopted and it has not changed. I think that it is important to say that green claims should stand for what they say they stand, and I think that the position of the Commission, taking into consideration that the position of other key players in this trialogue discussion may be different, intended to underscore that it was not going to be at any price that the Commission could stick to its original mandate. So, to avoid widening the scope of the green directives, that the Green Claims Directive, that, as you know very well, it is an option for any business to claim being green. They can claim being green or not, but what the directive says is that if they claim being green, it should stand for something. So I hope that there is room for agreement between the three institutions, and the message coming from the Commission was that if it was such a relevant change in the discussion, the Commission may take into consideration a withdrawal of the directive.
Thank you very much, Executive Vice President. This brings us to the end of the press conference. We'll continue with Commissioner Kubilius and the vision for a European space economy and the EU Space Act. And with you, there will be Thomas from the SPP. And thank you to the interpreters. And thank you very much, Executive Vice President, for being with us today.